Hey guys, I'm Damica.
And I'm Zenebou.
This is
DamnBoo. When shit's so fucked up,
all you can say is
DamnBoo.
Welcome back, y'all.
Yeah.
Fourth episode.
I'm being dramatic.
Fourth episode. We're here.
I know.
This is nice.
I guess. I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Well, where we starting off, friend? What are we doing?
Well, we just going to reiterate. It is, while we're recording this is the first time we'll be recording this as it being Women's History Month.
Women's History Month, y'all.
Yes.
Look.
Yes.
Come on, y'all.
Yeah. And so we just want to say, shout out to all the encouraging women out there, and just keep doing your thing. Like, I don't know,
I know that's
like
right.
that, like we just like inspired by how many, women are being their own leaders, and they out here doing their thing. That's all I gotta say.
I mean, in the span of history, like women have been that. Women have been the communicators, the leaders, the authority, the voice of reason behind every ounce of conflict and oppression and everything. So shout out to our women who, I mean, we literally bring life into the world. Literally bring life into the world.
Every day, every second
Well, people
of
with
this
vaginas, bring life into the world. But every woman counted, transgender women,
yes,
women, all the stuff.
Yes.
So
they are women too. So I better acknowledge that. And we're just acknowledging all the women that, have a powerful impact in our lives or just around the world in general. But, shout out to us. This is Women's History Month. So, I just got to say, we're available on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and YouTube. Damn. Like
platforms.
You can't tell us we ain't.
The socials is there. The list is we're here.
We're here. Yes.
For you.
Make sure y'all definitely follow us on these platforms so that y'all can stay updated. Make sure as soon as we release something, y'all on deck to watch or listen to the new episode. And make sure y'all follow us on YouTube if you want to see more of the visuals, what be going on, how we be acting. Catch us on YouTube and make sure you subscribe.
We also shout out a bunch of BIPOC creatives and everything across every platform. So make sure y'all check them out. It's always in the description box below. So yeah, make sure y'all give a good follow, give a little shout out to them too, on top of our shout outs.
We appreciate them.
So
that's why
we're doing the work. We're doing the work. So we need to do that.
Yeah. And also too, we are on Instagram at DamnBoo Podcast _ So make sure you follow us because you can stay updated. We got a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of posts going. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and all that. But let's go into the first segment, Voice Out, Show Out. Yes. So first person I want to talk about is AZ Noah. Oh my gosh.
Amazing. This is that person.
Some of y'all may not know her, but she is here on Emerson's campus, and she's just amazing. And what I wanted to highlight is that she has her own radio show called Nighttime Nostalgia, and this features every Sunday 10 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can catch it on WECB.FM. So make sure y'all check her out because she catching y'all with all the latest tunes, bops, all right?
I love that. Yes.
Yes.
I love the name of it too.
Yes, Nighttime Nostalgia.
It gives me like a very common, like I want to add that to my nighttime routine.
Yes, for sure.
To listen in.
Yeah. Next person I want to give a shout out to is Jasmine Cannon. Yes. She's a CEO of Sapphire Community Group, okay? And Sapphire is doing so many amazing things across the globe. Like I'm telling you, they're doing everything from donations to charities. Like I'm
humanitarian.
They making sure they looking out for people. And so Sapphire Community Group is a London-based charity foundation that And their mission is to give the youth ages 10 through 30 opportunities to figure out their passions and help them build along the way. They do mentoring, coaching, literature, entertainment, events, and workshops. And they aim to provide a space where youth are exposed to new activities and passions. And so make sure you definitely check them out. They also provide workshops, soup kitchens, resources to shelters and grants, to reduce everything such as poverty, unemployment, and crime rates. And so during Women's History Month, they're giving back. They're hosting their free film workshops online, so be sure to check that out. Damn.
Women just be doing that for me every time.
Period.
Women, period. So for my two people I want to shout out and everything, well, two astounding pillars of this community. Margaret Zhang, she is now the youngest editor-in-chief in Vogue history.
Y'all hear that?
Vogue China issue and everything. She is 27 years old.
Wow.
Imagine being like 27 though, like editor-in-chief, just accomplished. She has a lot under her belt. Like she, in 2016, she had 2 digital covers for the launch issue of Vogue Me China. She's integrated like completely. She's always made sure that she wanted to bridge Western and Chinese cultures and everything while highlighting both of them equally.
That's definitely important.
She's a co-founder of a company called Background that has worked with other companies like Airbnb and YouTube to showcase fashion labels.
Damn.
It's like the entrepreneurship and the level of skill and leadership you have to be even considered for like editor-in-chief in general for a whole publication is something I still can't really conceptualize having to have at the age of 27. Like before you're even 30. Like literally your brain stops developing at like 25. Like 2 years later you the editor-in-chief.
And we're not far from that. Like we're really not far from her age. So it's really inspiring to see women like this doing their thing and making sure that, you know, we are getting the opportunities that we deserve. And damn, she's just out here.
She has so much like under her belt too. She also supplies like mentorship programs and everything to really help like women and like people in the field and everything to get through this, especially with people of color. So that's just like, this is amazing. It's just amazing all around. But I also wanted to shout out Lead Filipino. Literally their whole board of directors is majority women and women identifying. Like, come on now.
Sounds like our team over here.
Literally, all women's team. Come on now. But with Lead Filipino, they increase Phil-Am engagement and they participate in civic participation, policy making, and just general like community leadership. I think one of the things that is really astounding about this organization is the way that, you know, Filipino Americans being away from the Philippines and everything is different. How we engage those social issues and everything. And there's this thing called like transnational activism and everything where we work collectively together. We work with the people that are in Philippines to highlight the different issues of like citizenship, immigration, socioeconomic disparities, healthcare, mental health, LGBTQIA issues. That's a lot. There's so many, like there's just all across the board amazing organization, amazing initiatives, especially during the pandemic. They've honestly transitioned flawlessly into a virtual setting as far as programs go. But women. Honestly.
Come on. Tens across the board.
It's just crazy. Like having, like, I think it's what's awe-inspiring about this month too is just the fact that, like, I mean, we have so many women in our lives and everything who have, you know, either inspired us, pushed us, supported us through whatever it is and everything to get us to this point, whether that's our mothers, aunts, friends, family of friends, you know?
Yeah, literally, our team.
Like, it's a whole encompassing effect. And I feel like generally, I can't say I've ever like felt unsupported when I've been around. Like, I feel like it's just that general comfortability.
Yeah. And there's just always, like, we see a lot of women pushing each other and always motivating and trying to, you know, help other women out because we know how hard it is, especially, you know, people say we live in a man's world. So that is something that's just always like mind-blowing to see that we are not getting the recognition that we have always deserved. And I think just months like this, like, but in general, like, it makes you realize how important and how strong women are, but also how they've been effective leaders in the community without people realizing the behind the scenes work that they've done. You know what I mean?
And like on top of like oppressive structures, like we still having those collective roles of leadership, of support, of action. Like that's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's a lot. Damn.
I'm glad we entering this. I'm glad we entering this with this positive mindset, because we're gonna go ahead and move on to our second segment, Vet Pals.
But before we get started, I just wanted to mention really quick, because, you know, last episode we was talking about representation in, you know, different films and TVs. So, you know, I just wanted to say a few names because, you know, we kind of didn't get into that. But, you know, we had like Moonlight, Atlanta, Fresh Off the Boat, The Fosters, Good Trouble, One Day at a Time. I know my sisters love that.
One Day at a Time is so nice.
It's so cute, yes. Dear White People, Rami, Never Have I Ever, Orange is the New Black, How to Get Away with Murder. And then we just recently had the release of Coming to America.
Yes, oh my God.
Yes, and so that's amazing to see that. And then we have Pose. Pose just announced that they're about to end after this.
I'm gonna cry.
This is sad.
The cast is phenomenal. I have like literally considered this cast like adjacent like families. They're like literally in my emotions, like deeply entrenched in them.
And they've done a wide range of different representation, from everything from, you know, Latin communities to, you know, Black communities to LGBT plus QAI communities, and so much on like beyond that. But also Raya and the Last Dragon also came out the same day as Coming to America. So this is like why I was like, oh, there's so much diversity, so much storytelling. Kim is over there screaming. She just watched it last night, 4 a.m. She's hyped.
It's so good. Yes. It's genuine storytelling and beautiful animation too.
And it's the first Southeast Asian Disney princess movie ever. And so it's like, that is amazing to see. But we also need more of that.
I need more.
And so we've been seeing a lot of people celebrate, you know, Asian culture, Asian communities. And I just wanted to highlight, there was like Kelly Marie Tran, when she stepped out into the carpet, she was wearing her traditional Vietnamese garment, and that was beautiful. Amazing. And we see that there's so much love for the culture, but as we're gonna get into Ven Pals, we see that there's a lot of hate as well.
Kelly Marie Tran, I think she faced so much backlash from Star Wars and their fan base and everything, after like highlighting the fact that like, I want more support. Like this is a whole, like, I'm an actress, I'm divine in my own right. I had an active role in a big ass franchise, and y'all mean to tell me I didn't matter? You know what I'm saying? And it's those moments, and the fact that she is breaking out with this new role in Raya and the Last Dragon is amazing.
Amazing. It just, I haven't seen it yet, but I honestly want to just look into it. The cast, it's everything, beautiful. Like, it's beautiful. And I believe what she was wearing was I think it's pronounced Ao Yai, but it was beautiful, just amazing. And that's one way of just celebrating her culture and, you know, getting people to experience and see from that. But we're going to dive into Ven Pals, and we're going to talk about the recent, I would say not more recent, but this has been something that's been going on for a while, but the hate towards the Asian communities. That's something we need to dive into.
I mean, there's so much celebrations around Asian culture and everything, and the way that it's inspired across the board and everything. That's it. We also have to talk about the other side.
Yeah, it's like
the injustices happen.
Yeah, it's like we just can't ignore like all the bad that's happening as we're receiving like the good.
It's so entrenched in our media. Like we have like the actual cultures, we have the food, we have the music, we have the fashion, the media, the movies, the shows. Like they, like when it comes to like Asian cultures and everything, there's so much diversity that's not just limited to a lot of people would think East Asia. also Indian culture, it's also Thai culture,
Yes.
it's also countries in the Middle East and everything. Like, they are all considered, and it's just, imagine, like, it's such a big diaspora, like, such a big one.
Yes, it is. And I just, like, it's just how we see, like, during the pandemic, there's definitely been a rise in how, you know, Asians have had, you know, assaults or violence towards them, or discrimination, and that's just during the pandemic. There's a lot to unfold with that history there. Like, if you go back and we think about, like, the late 1800s with the Chinese Exclusion Act, like,
policies continuously like show up in different ways institutionally, even to this day.
It's like we are still, it's sad that we have to still continue to go through the motions and fight, and, like, it hasn't been, like, a noticeable, I wouldn't say noticeable, but I guess an effective change in how we see, like, Asians are treated during our communities, and just among other communities as well. This is, like, something I wanted to bring up because a lot of people have been on social media and kind of been addressing that, you know, we shouldn't be taking the attention away from one group to another, or, like, that multiple issues can't be seen at the same time, which is not the case at all. And there's a lot of that between the Black community and the Asian community, of just saying how Black Lives Matter, and also, you know, the stop of hate between Asian communities can't be something that we could all discuss in, like, one time period. Like, we're not doing that. It's like when we talked about in the last episode, we're not doing that, like, oppression,
Olympics.
Olympics thing. Like, that's not the point. Like, you can multitask, can't you?
You can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like,
exactly.
And another thing too, it's like, y'all treat these movements like trends. Like this doesn't have an entrenched history. Like, this doesn't have a collective movement of activism, of history and everything. And one of the things I wanted to point out was, like, we can collectively talk about it across the board, like, because there's just so much in the world already that it, like, yes, we can go ahead and talk about this issue while also acknowledging the different ways that these issues intersect. There's so much to unpack there, especially, like, when she mentioned in the Policy Act and everything. It still acts in, like, different ways. It acts in cultural context. It acts in the ways that institutions, like, treat Asian groups and everything. And how I remember having one friend who, she was from, I think, Jordan and everything, and she always had to categorize herself under the white category because they didn't consider her ethnicity as Asian. And it's, you know, those little things that invalidate that identity in a cultural aspect. And also within hate crimes, that's another different thing of just having that violence. And I think one of the things that, you know, comes to mind is, like, my mother, right? Being from the Philippines and everything, she knows about, like, 4 or 5 languages. Like, this woman,
hear that?
Literally, like, she knows her rural dialect, Kapampangan, and she knows Tagalog. She knows Japanese. She knows English, and she knows a little bit of Spanish. Like, this woman is an all-encompassing factor in my life, like, inspirational. But when I say, there's been so many moments, I think, throughout my childhood, especially formative years and everything, where she's faced issues of, like, xenophobia, fetishization, discrimination, and even, like, work wage gaps within, like, the various jobs that she like encountered and everything. I think I remember having this like, I was reading over an article by NPR that had, like, a study from 2018 that said that Asian Americans were now, like, the most economically disproportionate group in terms of wealth gap and everything. And that, you know, that subverts, like, a whole narrative of, like, being a model minority myth, of being the minority that was, you know, so proximate, like, to whiteness. And I'm not saying, like, Asians altogether, East Asians who were light skinned and everything, under this model minority myth and everything, of being considered almost kind of, like, adjacent to white. and erasing their cultural identity, their ethnic identity, their whole entire lived experiences from like the Exclusion Act. Like, you're gonna go ahead and just trench over that because you and your whiteness deemed me as, you know what I'm saying? So it's, you know, there's those things like that I think open up a new portal of like talking this conversation about the recent spike in hate crimes across America and everything, and the history behind it, but also too like the continuous movements of dismantling those oppressive structures and everything is something that, like you said, we need to also pay attention to.
Like we need to like stop attacking each other and actually listening to each other and kind of see, you know, what it is that we can help each other out with, because there's nothing wrong with, you know, handling multiple issues at a time. Like, that's not the case. But we can see that the recent like rise in hate crimes is blatantly like in our face. So that's just something we can't just walk away and ignore and pretend like this is not an issue that we have to face. And especially when we talk about the pandemic, there's a lot I feel like came from politics as well. And I'm not going into like deep dive of the politics, but I already know when we had Trump as president, he was spreading on a lot of that, and he was encouraging that, and that's not something that you should be encouraging at all. Like, that's very disrespectful. Yeah, and so we seen there was recently that you know, our current president right now, Joe Biden, he released I believe it's called I'm gonna mess this up. I'm gonna memoriam. Damn. I can't. But he highlighted and addressed like how basically people who are our leaders should not encourage this type of behavior and actually, you know, refrain from that. But we're trying to see like where this leads to, like what else can be done, you know what I mean? Because that was just the beginning. So it's, I don't know, it's just like, it's crazy to see how just something that's affecting everyone is being targeted towards one group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, but why? Because y'all do this every instance when it's another like group or with another, you know, issue. But that, like, I think we just need to stop and think for a minute about the experiences that Asians have been going through and that we haven't ignored. And one thing that I also wanted to bring up was, because you talked about your school experiences growing up, and there was actually like people are afraid with, like, you know, schools opening back up, or, you know, eventually when we do go fully back in-person classes, you know, people in the Asian community are scared to let their children go back to school because they don't want that like type of like hate or bullying or discrimination to be brought upon their children. And that is definitely something that's very worrying, and it only just pushes us more as to why we need to talk about these things.
I agree. I think like with the point of like how like certain groups, especially within the BIPOC community and everything, are often like singled out, targeted after, you know, different transitions throughout history. I mean, we had like 9/11 and everything, where everyone was targeting after people who were Muslim and everything, and who like had this certain look. And it's that thing where it like purports like stereotypes, because like whenever Trump said, "Oh, this is the Chinese virus, this is the Wuhan virus," and everything, there was already a preconceived notion of like what stereotypes, what biases people had in mind whenever he said that. There was an image in mind. And I feel like even across the board, like we have there's so much diversity within the Asian community, and there's so many different intersectionalities within that I feel like often gets pushed under because of the fact that it's always, I feel like there's also colorism involved too, but also too, it all trails back to the model minority myth, where East Asian light-skinned people were okay. They were the ones that like the white people could tolerate and could like integrate. You know what I'm saying? Because like I was like, you know, along with this issue and everything, I started reflecting on like some of my experiences with like kind of having a really multi-ethnic identity and everything, but also like figuring out like what did that mean and everything, because you know I feel like when it comes to the certain inherent like notions about the Asian community, especially about Asian women and everything, there's often this fetishization
a lot,
dubbed like the yellow fever or some shit, and it's first off bullshit, but second off like this entrenched history of making archetypes, restrictive archetypes around Asian women, of putting them in this spot of being like the seductress, of being the submissive, of being docile, being quiet, and it's a gross history within like how war and like how pillaging happened like across countries and everything, and how pedophilia existed, and how you know the glorification around Asian women only represented itself as a sexual object. Like that's how like growing within that framework and everything, I think forms a lot of the fact that like once again y'all love the culture, but y'all will never love the people.
That says a lot.
It echoes back to it, and it informs policies. It informs. I think there's such a greater narrative of like media representation. That's why movies like Raya and the Last Dragon is so important. Like movies like Moana and everything, and movies like around those spaces and everything, where we're able to see stories that are outside of the stereotypes that were extremely harmful and everything. I think that's like the biggest thing. Yeah,
and it's definitely a reflection, because it starts really young, like, and I have seen like, you know, discrimination and hate towards Asian folks that I've been, you know, in spaces with and stuff. And I like, it just reminds me like going to school how cruel some kids can be, and how that carries on throughout a lifetime. Like that's just as important. If we can teach like our kids the rights of like how to treat someone, and how to treat someone properly, that is a lot within itself, because children are growing up with, you know, either ignorant or racist parents that carry on to this like they just carry on the stereotypes and notions that we just don't have to like stand back and just listen to anymore. It's just cruel enough. And like I remember, well, recently I just saw that Jeremy Lin also went on CNN and talked with Don Lemon about his experience, and it made me realize too, it doesn't matter how big you are, or you know, how famous or popular, or you know, having a certain like, you know, role or status, that still doesn't affect the type of hate that you get. And he was describing like even when he was playing basketball in college, how someone called him an offensive like slur, and and even when he got into the NBA, it still carried, like we seen that, but him being in that position also encouraged a lot of other Asians too, that they could be part of something like this, that this is just the beginning, that and he also carried himself in which he didn't want to give recognition to the people that caused hate towards him, because he wanted people to realize the experiences that these people go through, and that there's just so much that we need to learn about and just understand as like a community, as a society in general. Yeah, so I was really shocked.
I think another layer that like comes to mind too is the fact that like, I mean, we have so many international students from Asian countries in our school and everything, and having to be stuck in a country that's extremely xenophobic, extremely racist, knowing the inherent harms and dangers, like it's life endangering and everything, and to be stuck and away from home on top of a pandemic, on top of quarantining, on top of all these worries, and how like literally we're now receiving no support, and it's so unpredictable for as far as the future goes. To have to also deal with this it's heartbreaking, and it's also one of those things that I think whenever we consider those like numbers of like the spike and everything on hate crimes against Asian communities and everything, I think it's often like lost in translation that we don't consider like how many go unreported, how many like, because like factors like immigration exist, and reporting that out is something that is a huge risk. Like oftentimes a lot of, especially like in the BIPOC community, for immigrants and everything, reporting, and like even if a danger happens to you, even an injustice happens to you and everything, you're forced into silence because of the way the system is and everything, and how it works against so many communities of color. And one of the things that I think to be mindful of, like, well, as we're like talking about this conversation, is to not just share this information, but to actually provide resources, to actually listen to communities. I think the biggest thing, exactly, the biggest thing is like I think there's so many missed opportunities where we don't actually sit back and listen, and we want to be overheard. We're always in our headspace. We're always in ourselves and everything, to the point where we ignore other people's needs and everything. And it's important, especially with issues like this, to be with the community, be restored, don't speak over, and another thing too, acknowledge like the privileges and different ways that you contribute to racism and bias and xenophobia. Because I mean, it's not to say that you are, but it's to say that it pre-existed a lot in your life. I mean, I think I remember seeing a comedy short of Amy Schumer, that white woman or whatever. She did a whole comedy skit about how, as a white woman in the dating landscape at the time, where she was single, I think, she said that she couldn't compete with Asian women. And she listed these whole list of like stereotypes about Asian women and everything, these gross descriptions, and the audience cackled and laughed.
Oh no.
And I think that's where it becomes to the point where when we talk about these issues, you humanize these issues, because there's so much working against communities of color that are dehumanizing us, that we need to actually add a face to the stories that we're doing.
Yeah, and so you like, going back, you also mentioned like how many reports go unreported, and so Stop AAPI Hate, they recently like created like a system, and basically where people can submit their reports for racism and discrimination, and this is for Asian Americans, Asians, and also Pacific Islanders as well. And they started this from like March to and this like it's keeping track since March up until December. That's where it like began, where it kind of like rose from, and I believe it started in California. But since then, they've been able to report 2,808 incidents. And that's like you said, that probably includes doesn't include like, you know, how many reports go unreported.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's I mean, I'm glad that like systems like that, or like, you know, technologies like that exist, but at the same time, it's like it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, and you can definitely check out their website too. You could go to stopaapihate.org. They also have resources. They also have a GoFundMe, and so where you could donate. And also they're just like providing different resources out to people. And I just thought it was really, really important that we have a system like this, or people are creating a system like this for people in their community. Yeah. And like you said, resources are just as important, because like what are they supposed to do when they come in contact with any situation where they feel like they can't protect themselves.
Absolutely.
Like, especially like here, when you mentioned, we do have a lot of international students here on campus, and we have like we're kind of like in the middle of, you know, the Asian community ourselves, with being in, you know, Chinatown. So we see a lot of it, and just hearing, when I've heard experiences from my classmates about, you know, the type of hate that they got, I was like, there's no way
to deal with this on top of everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like they felt like nobody could help them. So I think just not, like you said, just not only being able to share like what it is that's going on, but also make sure people feel like they could be helped, because that's just something that really opens the eye and encourages people to kind of speak out, and also share these resources with everybody else.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, y'all, let's go ahead and wrap it up with our next segment. Mention and intention.
Yes.
Well, some of my intentions that, especially related to this topic, I want to highlight and everything is to be mindful of, like what I said before, to not treat this movement like Black Lives Matter, stop Asian hate crimes and everything.
Like they have their own.
They have their own hashtags.
They have their own resources. They have their own platforms and other ways that you can help them out. So yeah. I mean, it's so important to, because like treating it like a trend automatically puts you in the place of performative activism, and to also co-opt other movements the way they've had their ideologies spread out. I remember seeing so many contention around, or conflict around Black Lives Matter and then Asian Lives Matter and everything. And the only thing I say about that is the fact that it's counterproductive. It's the same way in which All Lives Matter manifested and everything. It's not endearing. It's not really pointing out the issue at hand without actually silencing other issues that have rooted themselves in a movement that honestly like is a catalyst of many other movements. I mean, there's so much that the Asian community can owe to civil rights activists and Black history and everything, and to the fact that their movements, their push has made so many spaces for so many people of color and everything. I mean, all of it like owes back to like the Black community and everything. So it's important to be mindful that we don't use our movement to silence others. Yeah, that's very true. And like you said, it's just as important to be able to provide resources, be able to share, but also educate and bring awareness to these issues. Make sure that you're just as knowledgeable about the information you're spreading, how you can help other people out. I think, you know, just mentioning like what it is to be an ally. How can I help out? What is it that I can do, or, you know, what privileges do I have that I know that I can use to help and benefit other people?
Absolutely.
Because it just, like, what, I mean, why are you on Earth then?
Exactly. Like the human factor of being together, working together.
Yes. So, like, I mean, use your power to help other people out. And we're not saying everyone has to be an activist. Everyone has to go out of their way, push everything on social media, make everything big. But every minimal small matter counts. Like everything counts. And like it can be from helping out a friend or helping out a local community in your community, or just helping out a group of people that you know. But you definitely have to put in the work. It's not like a one-time thing and it's done. And make sure you know the facts and make sure you know what's like happening. And it's so unfair that Asians are being treated like this, because I believe I saw on the New York Times, I think, that it said that they're the most like fastest ethnic group that's growing here in America. And so it's like, why can't we just give other people, you know, the space? And, you know, just the opportunity to be themselves, but also feel like themselves, feel like they're being safe and protected. Mm-hmm. So
I think what that comes to mind is like when I first came up to Boston and everything, the one thing I was so excited about was seeing like other Asian communities, because being from North Carolina and everything, like while I was surrounded by like people of color, Black people and everything, I wasn't like really like represented in the way of like, you know, Southeast Asians and seeing different identities within like that culture and everything. And you know, I felt so like isolated within like me and my mom and everything, of being in like these predominantly white spaces when we travel outside of Fayetteville and everything, and like being like sort of just like, you know, like that like outsider and everything. So like I remember my mom, whenever she saw like Chinatown, this woman raved. Like she was all over the place. This woman, like she went down to I think Kung Fu Boba or whatever. She went down there and she got herself I think a Thai tea, and she just I just remember the smile on her face and just like the joy and the relaxation around that. And it was so nice to see that. I think whenever we're, you know, talking about issues like heavy topics like this, I think it's important to know that there is people behind this. There's people that are needing the community to listen and everything, different communities to listen, and also to, like you said, like with doing the work is also like doing the work responsibly and being sure that we're conscious of not spreading trauma porn. Like there's a huge difference between y'all spreading information and y'all traumatizing individuals, because I mean, social media is like the first thing we often open up like every morning.
Literally
like,
there.
It's literally there. Like we always on our phones and everything. And imagine like, you know, you going through your stories and everything, you see something that's, you know, without a trigger warning, without anything. And even with the trigger warning too, I want to also point out like
it just doesn't like,
it's too graphic. It's like not even like showing like what happened is too graphic. It's the fact that how you're using it and everything. You know, maybe link it to an article and at their own discretion. I think it's the point of giving agency and giving choice and engaging in traumatizing like content and everything, traumatizing stories and everything. Like I think it's the same way that we have to treat this across all movements and everything. But one of the things I've been seeing a lot lately is, even though we're spreading the information, it also desensitizes a lot of people from like the actual issue of being like, oh my God, that actually happened, instead of being like, what can we do? Yeah,
it's kind of like, especially seeing like back to back like that you don't know how that triggers someone, and that's just, you got to think about like, we know social media is like, it's a pro and it's also a con. So just knowing how to actually effectively communicate what it is that you want to highlight or bring awareness to is important as well. And we see like in you brought this up too, like off while we were just like walking around on campus or stuff, but you said like in media how like the stories were very like up there. Now it's kind of like we see little to none.
Media coverage is really selective, and it really does show. I mean, if you think about it, like I think when we were having that conversation, it was around the time when like the comments around like the Chinese virus were really being weaponized, and then we started hearing about Asian hate crimes. You see that connection? Like that's a weird way to bring up an important issue, prompting it with actual hate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it didn't make sense at all. And so like, obviously we need to be more aware of like who we're talking about, where we're coming from, and you know what we need to do to be able to help people out, and not just, I mean, it's two different things, just pushing something out there and actually helping people out. But yeah, I mean, from your view, from your perspective, what do you feel like people could do more of, or like what do you think I could do more of?
Right. I think it's just a matter of like listening, and also a matter of acknowledging that you're not going to know everything. You know, I think there's this, you know, preconceived notion that like once we're aware of like, oh, there's a privilege, oh, there's like a oppressive structure or whatever, that it's immediately gone by the time we acknowledge it. No, like you're still working through a whole entire framework that was filled with capitalism, filled with racism, filled with xenophobia and everything. And one of the things I want to mention too is I think there's been so much conflict and tension between the Asian and Black community that I really hope with, you know, movements like this and everything that we can actually have a productive conversation around how this tension doesn't have to exist, that how there is inherent anti-Blackness within the Asian community, and how there is how it promotes into white supremacy as a whole and everything. Like it's a whole framework that I think we need to start breaking out of, because like by the time we break out of it, we're also breaking out of white supremacy and everything. You know what I'm saying? Like whiteness has pervaded in Asian cultures for so long. Colonizers being seen as conquest, being seen as objects and everything. Like that by breaking out of that, like we can actually make some actual progress and actually celebrate and embrace.
Yeah. Well, I want to say first of all, thank you for sharing like your experiences,
This
and
is a
like
safe
what
space.
You've been going on.
Right. Thank you for allowing the space, girl.
I mean, we both helping each other out.
We see each other.
But yeah, we just wanted to say, like, also you can't just love everything from anime to K-pop, and also there's BTS also just had a thing with receiving hate against their just like culture and just their ethnicity and background. But we're just gonna end it off, and we're really gonna say thank you to all of you,
to our team.
Yes, to our team, Skylar Figueroa, our marketing manager, Alexis
Metcalf,
who's our videographer and editor, and Kim Noft, who's our sound engineer. But honestly, thank you, all of you, for tuning in. Make sure, y'all follow us on all different platforms. We're going to make sure that we list all the resources and everything down below. And make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, listen to us on Spotify, everything that is.
Well, we covered in the beginning.
So, once again, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Bye.